So, my question to you is, have you ever felt like you simply didn't have enough time or enough energy or really the ability to have a team? If you are like me, most of us start as solopreneurs, solo creatives. We got to do all the things. We've got to do all the emails ourselves. We obviously create, we make the stuff, we write the stuff, we record the stuff, we video the stuff. And then you've got to actually do what I call the 5 cycles of creative life. So after you do the creation, right? First you do the planning, that's number one. And then the creation is two. And then you have to do the, what usually would call the editing. In this case, I would call it the production. So you have the planning and then the creative work and then the production. And then you got to do the distribution, right? You got to get it out to people. And then fifth, you got to have conversations and you got to figure out how to get everything figured, what you did, discuss it, talk to people, and then you got to go back to planning again, right? So planning, creation, production, promotion or distribution, and then conversation, and then all the way back. That's a lot of work for one person. Not only that, most of us are working probably a hybrid type of thing where you have one job and you have another job and you have this thing on the side, or maybe you're doing your creative work full time, but that also involves all these different things. So, where's the time for all of those 5 sections of the creative life? It's hard to find. Not only that, some of us are super nervous about ever having to deal with one other person or two or three to manage, because one reason many of us start a creative life and get into this hustle is because we've been in corporate situations, we've been corporate creatives, and we want to kind of get our own thing going. But then the idea of bringing on somebody else to help us is absolutely scary, because I just came from a place where I had to work with people and things didn't always work out. And now you want me to be the boss? Now you want me to be responsible for either payroll or managing time or all these other things that I didn't like in my corporate sphere? And most of us creators feel that's kind of the opposite of what we want. So this is why many of us fear building any kind of team or finding a team, because we think that it's going to be too much work, more frustration, and less time. But in the same breath, we say we have no time to do anything. We're frustrated and we need some help. So if you felt this, I would love to see in the comments as I'm sharing if you have felt this way before. Put a yes in the comments. So, what do we do? Well, we need to find these people. We need to find people who will be our dream team. And you know, the first place you can look, and this is something that has blessed me, because let me first start by telling you, I did start as a creative, just doing this on my own. My first, I guess you could say, my music job would be the music teaching thing. So I was doing my music teaching at home, doing piano lessons. I did all the scheduling. I called all the parents. I set up the recitals. I did all that by myself. Then when I started gigging, same thing, making all the calls, finding all the gigs, carrying all my stuff. I think my son might have helped me like load my stuff every once in a while, but I was pretty much doing that all by myself. Then there was, of course, gigging, as I just mentioned, and then even into podcasting, God and Gig Show, solo podcaster. I had a co-host, but I still handled all of the work, doing all of the editing, doing all of the promotion, all of that stuff came straight from me. So I know what it's like to simply be stuck in that one size fits all, doing all the things, until I realized I was burning myself out. One, two, I really couldn't have this thing grow any bigger. And then as God was putting more on my plate, music and podcasting and ministry, how in the world could I keep all these things going? Much less what I'm doing now, which is several podcasts. And I'm also doing several different brands inside of our church and other areas where I'm actually managing several different things at once. How in the world could I do that by myself? Here's the answer. I can't, and neither can you. No matter what your sphere of influence is, whether you're working on one project, 2 projects, whatever it is, if you have your hands in all the things, you are the lid of your business. You are the lid of your growth. There's this law of the lid that John Maxwell talks about. And it's really a leadership concept, but it's also a business concept. As long as you are the only person there, your capacity is the limit that you will reach. And that's the capacity of your business until you get help. I was the same way. I was the capacity limiter. As long as my cup was already full, there was no room for anything else, which meant no other work got done. And there was no way I could have any room for the blessing that God was going to bring. So, what did I have to do? I had to reach out, get past myself, and look for a dream team. So, I'll tell you as we go through these 3 ways that I found my dream team, I'm going to share some of those examples so you see how this works together. So, first, I found my dream team inside my own community. So I know some of you immediately thought when I said, oh, find your dream team, you immediately thought, let's go hire people, right? I got to go hire people. I got to go on Fiverr. I got to do these other things and pay people. Well, the first thing I learned is that your best people to become part of your team are already usually on your team. You just don't know it yet. You see, the people that have now become like a linchpin in my business and in my creative life. By the way, forgive me, there's somebody that's just feels like being a hot rod over here and is driving super loud and super fast. But the thing that I learned quickly was that simply asking those people inside the community were the people that became part of the dream team. And so I love this part because I get to shout them out right now. Some of them that are now part of the team are right here in front of you. Now, neither one of these people are actually, I would say, employees, contractors, anything like that, but they are just as much part of my team as anybody else would be. Now, Simony here and Michael Hughie, they were number 1 on the podcast before, but Simony I've known forever. Simony has been such a friend of God and Gigs. But when I realized she had so many giftings and so many things that I could, we could utilize, but I couldn't afford to pay her for all of her knowledge in terms of she's been an intern, she's been running big artist businesses and things like that. And now she's working with one of our largest arts organizations in South Florida. I can't pay her for that kind of knowledge. But what we could do is, because she was already so invested in God and Gigs, is we could figure out a way that she could take advantage of all of the resources and we could take advantage of her skills. So she's now our 360 ambassador. Simony is the first person that will greet you when you join God and Gigs 360. She is now getting free access to everything. She's getting all the trainings. I wish she was here. She probably is with the baby right now. She's got this beautiful 2-year-old. So I know that when she watches this, she gets all access to everything. It was simply a barter system. I said, I can't offer you what I really, really want to offer you, which is a paid position, but I can offer you everything that is in our membership. And in return, she is giving back to the community. The same thing I can say for Charmaine Michelle. Charmaine is part of our 360 Gold program. And she would never tell you that she's a part of a team. But I'm telling you, she's a part of the team. Why? Because nobody has supported and shared our live streams. No one has done more than her to share. So literally, she is basically kind of like our chief marketing officer, even if I never given her the title. She is the person that will say to everyone, this is why you should be a part of God and Gigs. And so I have 2 people here in my community that have graciously volunteered to be a part of this because they believe in the message. Now, who in your circle have you not asked to take part in your vision because you were like, oh, I can't pay them? Maybe there's other ways that you can give value for value. This is a huge thing that I'm going to keep preaching because I'm doing it in my podcast. I'm doing it now in my music. Value for value. There's not always a price tag attached. Sometimes the value is something different than simply the money that they could get. It's what they can contribute and they gain something from that. So that is why I really, really advocate for you to first, if you're looking for help inside your community or help for your team, look inside your community first, okay? Now, the second thing is going to surprise you because you're looking for people, right? You're looking to find a dream team of people who will help you. That's what I found in Simony. Oh, and I forgot one more mention. Outside of God and Gigs, the same thing happened in another podcast that I'm doing, where one young lady who loves the podcast is now learning and helping us It's not really an internship. It's kind of like an internship, but she's beyond an intern. She's way better than anyone that's just learning. She knows how to do this basically for a living, but she's helping out one of our other podcasts as well. So this has happened for a third time where a third team member has jumped in and decided to do actual working on the project simply because they want to bless the community and to provide value for value. Okay. Number two, again, is going to surprise you because you might first say, well, you're asking to find a dream team of people, right? But I didn't necessarily specify that it had to be people. Sometimes the things that you need to do to get something on your dream team are going to involve automation and tools that replace or make people not as necessary. Because a lot of the work we're doing and that we're trying to find people to do, tools can do. And so the tools are absolutely a part of the team in a very interesting way, not an AI kind of way, just in a way that they fulfill a role that you don't have time for. And when you get that tool to fulfill that role, it would be just like calling up a person saying, hey, can you handle this every week? Can you handle blank, blank, blank? So I'm going to tell you some of the tools I'm using that's also part of my team because they make that particular role on the team not necessarily something that a person has to do. So here's some of the tools that assist me in this. And by the way, if you want a list of this, this is where you definitely want to jump into the Inspired Creators collection. This is our $10 program a month where you can simply get the trainings and not necessarily the coaching. This is where I'll be sharing things like this particular slide. So you can get this later as well if you want to join the Inspired Creators collection. So Meet Edgar is probably my favorite example of this because Meet Edgar is my scheduler and it's the one that keeps sharing my social media even after the social media has been shared once. It's an automatic scheduler that comes back around, finds old posts and reposts them again. So because of Meet Edgar, excuse me. Yep, haven't talked this long in a while. So because of Meet Edgar, I don't have to hire someone to constantly make up social media posts because Meet Edgar goes back and finds old posts that are new to somebody because we all know Facebook does not show you everything. Meta does not show you everything. So a lot of these posts that go into the ether and never show up again, they're evergreen. So it could be a picture from me performing that I just want people to see it and Edgar goes back and shows it again. Or it could be a YouTube video. Edgar goes back and shows it again. So this is where a tool is taking the place of someone that doesn't have to go to all of my social media content to find things. The same thing can be said for MiniChat. MiniChat, I know LaShonda loves this one. MiniChat is my answer for direct message because direct messages oftentimes comes time when I can't answer, right? Well, if I use MiniChat, that automatically can send a funnel of answers and take people to the right place and respond to their DMs. This is again saving me having someone who had to sit there and look for those DMs to come in from Instagram or Facebook. I'm doing this with my music performance event coming up. I already have 5 or 6 different funnels where people are requesting tickets and it's sending them to the right place. So these tools are part of the team. They replace a person. They keep a person from having to sit there on the phone, to having to sit there. I mentioned here also CapShow and Cast Magic for my podcast, StreamYard I'm using right now. Meta Business Suite is another scheduler. Here in ConvertKit, the email networking, Zapier and Clay, these are all things for networking. And these are all things that, again, help me stick with the information that I'm getting. It automates my emails. If there's Zapier, it connects all kinds of different tools. Clay is a cool tool that I've used for a long time now to kind of help keep up. And you know what I didn't put in? I didn't put in Personal Brain, but that's more for like measure. That's more like, that's like what you call, I got off track there. Personal Brain is more for like data management and like keeping all my thoughts together. So that's another one that probably should go next to Clay. You can see a bullet was missing, so I forgot to put that one in. But that's where these tools come in to help me with that. And then there's scheduling. We all know that you need someone usually to help you schedule stuff. But what if you can't hire someone? Well, you get Calendly or SavvyCal, and then you connect it with your Google Calendar. Google Calendar actually does this by itself too. It can create areas where people can click a form, schedule their own time, meet you at a certain time, Zoom with you at a certain time. And this again replaces the need for someone to sit on the phone to answer calls and to schedule things. If people can self schedule, you don't need to hire an assistant that's going to schedule all of your meetings, because the meetings will be scheduled as long as your schedule's set up and you have your open places. People schedule themselves. So you don't need to hire somebody. You have the tool that's a part of the team. I hope this is making sense, because this is what's been helping me again to run 4 different brands or podcasts and then about 8 different social media accounts and all this stuff, is because I have a dream team of both people from my community and tools that assist. And then finally, here's the part that most people were thinking of when they saw me say that I had a dream team or how to find a dream team. Most people immediately think of freelancers, contractors, and I'd put in small letters. I didn't put interns here, but that would probably fit under this category. So these are the people you bring in outside of your community that are going to work with you. And this, again, this is not going all the way to employees. We're simply talking about the freelancers, the contractors, the people that you can hire on a project basis to help you with things. So let me tell you a little bit of a story about how I now I have 2 VAs that in different areas of my creative life that I work with, and both of them are in the podcasting realm. And one from God and Gigs does way more than just the podcast, but she has been with me now for 3 years, and that's Via. Via is amazing. Via was our first VA here in God and Gigs and Paul Creative Services. And then also on the other side, where another podcast I'm doing, there is also a VA that works there. So I'm actually working with 2 different VAs. And this is coming from someone that was a solopreneur. And all of a sudden now I have 2 different VAs that are contracted, and I've hired other ones through my other businesses and through the church and stuff like that. So the thing that I want to first explain to you about the VA thing is that it is not about just being able to find the perfect person that's going to do all of your work for you. That's not what a VA is for. That's not what a freelancer is for. A freelancer or contractor is there to take a specific mission, a specific job, and to do it to a level that you couldn't do it. That's the only reason to hire someone as a freelancer contractor, is not because you need to build this huge team. It's because there's specific roles. But here's what happens. As you build your team, specific roles get more and more specific, but those people also become more and more acquainted with your flow. So they're possibly able to take on more roles. This is why it's so important to pick the right people when you're building your dream team, to find the right kind of freelancers and contractors, because sometimes these people, like in my case, become much more than just a role player. So let's talk about where to find them. Where do you find these creators? Where do you find these contractors and freelancers? Well, first of all, you can ask fellow creators. This is the best way. Now, a lot of them, of course, are going to say, I don't want you to hire my person. But you can ask fellow creators, who are they working with, or who do they recommend in certain areas? If you're looking for someone to build a website, if you're looking for someone to contract with you and to help you to get your social media together, if you're looking for someone for editing or posting, this is where asking other creators is the first way and the best way to get the right recommendations, because they know the kind of people that do good work. They're not going to send you to just anybody, especially if your community is strong. The second place, of course, most of us know about is online. These are freelance platforms. This is like Upwork and Fiverr. I think Fiverr is spelled with 2 R's versus 2 V's. Sorry about that. And Skillshare, I believe, is another one. I've used Upwork. I highly recommend Upwork. Fiverr is kind of like the Craigslist of finding freelancers. Sometimes you get one that's great. Sometimes you don't. So this is where I would talk a little bit more. I will talk a little bit more about Upwork and how I've used it. And finally, there's local schools and colleges. This is where you can find interns. This is where you can find people who are just getting started and who are willing to work. And some of these young people coming out of these schools are 100% as good as anyone that has a degree, or probably better, maybe because they can focus on, if it's social media or whatever that project is, they might have a little more time to really give you something that you need. And more likely, they are interested in getting that experience, okay? So that they can put that on their resume and use it, so it's a mutual benefit. Now, when I first hired my VA, I did not know how to start. So I had to read some books. One of the books I read was called Who. I think it's by Jeff Surratt or Stewart. I'm not sure. I got to make sure I look that up. But Who talked about hiring A players. And this was something I didn't know anything about. So this is also a presentation that I did for Podfest. This is available if you want it. Also in the Inspired Creators Collection, I'll be putting it there. So the first thing you got to do is decide what are the tasks you want a team member or a VA to do. First of all, you got to pick the lowest hanging fruit. Don't pick something that's high level that you think someone's going to come in and just start doing for you because you don't like to do it. You can't start from the top. You got to start from the bottom. Take the tasks that you know you're not good at, but also are not necessarily hard to explain, and make sure you can start from there. But then the second step is also as important. You got to document what you do and what you want done. So I have a great tool I'll talk about in a second, but I'll just mention it, Scribe. Scribe is an amazing tool for clicking and keeping track of your screen when you have a certain digital thing that you want this person to do so that they can follow along one step at a time. Some people use Loom, other things to record their own work. The key is you got to document your process so that you can show it to the next person and the next person after that. You're basically creating a standard operating procedure. Then finally, you want to delegate to that person. You want to pick someone who understands their niche, understands your niche, and has equal passion for your projects. And this is where God blessed me with people who really wanted to know and understand what I was doing. So when I first hired my VA, I was reading this book, Who. I was looking for A players. And so I saw a lot of people inside Fiverr and Upwork who had all these credentials and all these reviews. But then when I talked to them, and yes, I did in-person interviews with the people that made it to the final cut. First of all, there's this great list. I got to see if I have it still on Upwork of the things I was looking for. So I was very specific about what I was looking for. That's something you got to be able to do, to detail the actual job and not just say, I want somebody to help me. You got to be very clear about the role this person's going to fill. Then when I did the interview, here's the thing that I want to make sure that you understand. I think it's on the next slide. You delegate for fit, not necessarily experience. When I found Upwork and I found these people, I set the parameters, but I did not simply look for the person that had the most experience. Instead, in this case, I was looking for someone, as I mentioned here, who had the best alignment with my niche and showed real interest in seeing me succeed. This is how you get the right person for your dream team. Not just because they've done it a million times, not just because they're experienced, not because they work with this person or that person. Hire someone or contract with someone who has a passion for what you have a passion for and would do the extra work even if it wasn't necessarily something that was benefiting them. Is that hard to find? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. You got to make sure you don't get caught up in this idea that you have to find a person that has a ton of experience and works with everybody. Because if you train someone and teach them your way of doing things, it can be so much more valuable to you, as I found out for me, than simply getting someone that works with everyone and gets hired over and over again, but doesn't really put your work first. So this is something, a little quick tip that I think you should pay attention to. And by the way, when I was doing these same interviews, so I would interview these people who were giving responses to my Upwork requests. A lot of them were immediately trying to say like, "Oh, I can do this, I can do that," and something just didn't feel right. I think they were taking on too much. They were trying too hard to impress me. So this is kind of like a hiring discussion as well. I didn't just go for the same people that I thought would be most experienced. If I didn't think they had the right kind of feel, they weren't a 10, I was like, okay, we're not going to hire you. So this is how you get over that hump of feeling like you got to get the exact right person. Nope. You got to get the person that's passionate, is willing to learn, and then that person most likely will become the perfect candidate for your help. So in conclusion, you want to search your community. You want to use your tools to fill in the gaps for people. And then third, you want to hire when you're ready through Upwork, Fiverr, some of these other things. That's the third place where you can get those people. And if you take your time, you'll be able to find the people who will help you, support you, help you get to that next level because you were focused on the right things, bringing in the right people, and making sure that they were understanding of everything that they could do with you, but also do for themselves. Because just like we're seeing in our community, people, they're gaining just as much as they're getting. That's the goal of any of these situations where you want to get help to make your dream team a reality.